So excited for this because we have a special guest joining us today. Her name is Nikki Dancho. She is one of our fellow community members. We all met online doing this business with Enagic and working with Kong and Water. And we just wanted to invite her on because she is also a fellow mama, working her business, staying home with her baby. And it's just really incredible to connect in this way. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of NLP. We'll get into what that is and what that means, what that stands for. And then we'll just kind of talk about mom and business life. So let's get into it. Hi,
Yay.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
yeah. So like I said, we just really were, I mean, I know, we've connected a lot, and I think you were actually one of the first people that I connected with in this group. And we really just connected over Instagram. I think just finding common interests and being like, hey, let's be friends. But you also really helped me through my home birth, um, doing the NLP. So I really just wanted to kind of share that with the other ladies and with everybody watching, because I just found it really, really powerful. And the fact that you've also kind of integrated that into your business as well, I just have always admired that. So if you want to talk about that a little bit more, what it stands for first and foremost, and then how you came upon it.
Yeah, sure. So, excuse me, NLP is stands for neuro linguistic programming, and there's a lot of history within it that I'm not going to get into for time's sake, but basically it's using language and how our brains code our experiences to create our reality. So you can use NLP for so many different things. You can control your emotional state. You can release negative emotions, limiting beliefs. You can install goals. You can break habits, create new habits. There's so many different things that you can do with it. And it really comes down to subconscious rewiring and learning how your brain, if you think about like an operating system, how your brain actually codes and stores these beliefs and memories and programming that we have, and then altering that. So I was introduced to NLP in a business coaching program, although I didn't know that's what it was at the time. Our mindset coach that we had inside that business program his name is Peter Shaw. He's amazing. Look him up. He's a phenomenal NLP practitioner, master practitioner, teacher, all of that. And when I was done with that, I was so interested in it that I wound up taking his NLP practitioner training immediately after. And just ever since then, I've just dove straight in. It's been so fascinating to me about how we're able to really, okay, one second, baby. Let me get back into this.
I love that this is our actual reality. Just
I that's what I'm saying, Francis. Like people need to
popping in and
see
out.
you
Like,
can do it, do the things, have the business, but grab the apple juice box, peel, you know what I mean? Like take them potty. Like
Yep.
boom on the job. Yeah, I
It's so
love
funny
it.
because I was like, I'm like looking at Kylo and I'm like, I might have to step out.
yeah, I
No,
know.
same. She's already getting into like
You know what's
floss picks
oh,
on the
she's going
ground.
to. Francis,
It's
how's the
funny
weather over
because
there? It is about to snow in Texas. Like I did not
it's
sign
gonna
up for this.
snow.
It's gonna
Oh my
snow
goodness.
on tomorrow. Like I didn't sign up for this.
No,
Is
I
it
didn't
still
sign up
like,
for it either.
is it like not ridiculous in Florida? It's not doing anything crazy, the weather?
It's actually cold right now and it's getting colder. Like we have like a breeze and it's just blowing cold air, which is so much fun. But if I'm being honest, like I'm in my PJs still. It's 1 o'clock. That's embarrassing, but I've been just kind of taking today super easy, so I haven't even stepped outside. I have my heater on, but I've noticed that it's just getting colder. So
Yeah. It's like we're having an Arctic blast or something, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how is it snowing in Texas? Like, what?
Yeah. I know. I think like parts of like just north of us in Daytona, we're gonna get not snow, but there's like ice warnings or whatever. That's what I heard anyways. So I'm like, okay.
And we're back.
All right, sorry
We're
about
back.
that. You
That
know,
was the
mom
best.
life.
Yeah.
Really, that's exactly what we want to show people, the reality.
So I
Yes.
think I was riffing on just really just diving into NLP with my fascination of it was the missing piece in the entire creating your reality, creating your dream life, creating whatever it is that you desire. That to me was the missing piece of what I was looking for to actually make everything click and have everything come together for me. So I personally use it in my business coaching, but I also use it in my personal life just to strive to be the best version of myself. I use it in my parenting. And as DeShera said, I use it for, although I was just starting to take the NLP training when I was using it for childbirth. So there are practices that I know now that I will implement for the next time. But if there is a next time, but
Will be a next time. So I'll definitely call.
I saw that twinkle in your eye. And being able to help other people use these tools in all different aspects of their life. So yeah, that's my little intro on NLP.
Yeah, that was like I said before, it was just like you introduced me to that. I've never heard of it before. And when we started kind of working together, it just, I was like, wow, like everybody needs to know this because it's like really just hacking your brain and like you said, rewiring really. But again, I found it so powerful. And I will say that that is what got me through birthing my son because I was able to drop in and go to that place that I created. And it was just, it was just so incredible. And having you kind of like pre-frame and not like, you know, a lot of people have opinions and stuff of like, oh, this is, you're going to do this and this is what it's going to be like. You just kind of outlined more so. And it wasn't like I was able to fill it in for myself and experience my own story and how it unraveled. But it was like I had that little guideline to kind of tether myself every step of the way. And it was just so cool. I mean, even down to having Cam, my husband, the way that he touched me, or, you know, him just reminding me, like, breathe. And he would breathe with me. And that was just like one of those triggers that like brought me back in. And it was just so cool to like really experience firsthand. And I was, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna come in with a question. I've heard of NLP here and there, have no idea how it actually is implemented or how does it look in different things from birthing to becoming, you know, a better version of yourself, or what does it look like in application?
So that's a really good question. And I'm working on some offers to bring more of these practices to people because there are a lot of practices that you need to do with another person, but there's so many things that you can do with yourself, a lot of self-programming and I'll just share a couple of the powerful tools that, you know, I shared with DeShera and that I've used like for different areas of my life. So one of the big practices that we use is called anchors. Like DeShera was talking about, like how Cam touched her, or just the cue of reminding her to breathe. So an anchor is based on Hebb's axiom that if it fires together, it wires together. So basically, what you're doing is you're attaching an emotional state to it can be an object, a phrase, a gesture. You could use any of your senses, really. The key is to make it repeatable and unique so that if you intentionally fire that anchor, you call in the emotional state that you are wanting to call in. Whereas, you know, you don't want it to be something where if some stranger does, you know, like a hey, people do that a lot. It triggers an emotional state for you. Like
Right.
a powerful anchor that everybody has that you don't even realize is a smile. How do you feel when someone smiles at you, right? You instantly feel lighter. Or when you smile, that's an anchor. You're eliciting an emotional state because it's attached to a physical gesture, an IQ that you're actually seeing. So in childbirth, I was really big on just relaxation cues, really being able to bring myself into the present moment, relax the body. And one that I think I worked on with DeShera, or mentioned that she might want to set, that I will definitely be setting next time, is like a strength, like a power anchor. Because there were times when I was just like, I just need a break. And they were like,
Yes.
oh, honey, you can't really have one of those right now, but you're close. And so to be able to call on just that strength, and that's something that I've been thinking, like, when would I set that anchor? And like when I'm working out, there are so many times when I'm working out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do one more. And I'm like, girl, you birthed a child. You can do
Right.
another squat. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and then feeling that energy. And that is what you would want to anchor it. So other anchors I have are like when I open, this is a big anchor for me. When I put in wired headphones, or even like the big, my AirPods, not so much because I wear them like when I'm fluttering around doing stuff. But like if I'm sitting at my laptop and I put in wired headphones or my big over, I instantly, I don't even have to have music on. I zone right into focus mode. This is a huge anchor for me. So you can set them for productivity. You can set them for relaxation, to feel good. You could set, you can set them to any emotional state that you desire, and you can stack multiple emotional states to an anchor as long as they match. Like you wouldn't want to have like excited and relaxed on the same one because they're conflicting. So that's really powerful because your emotional state a lot of the time drives your initial reaction to an experience. If you think about like when you're in a good mood and you're driving and someone cuts you off, you're less inclined to be like, ah, but if you're already in a bad mood and someone cuts you off, you're like, you are on my list today, so having that emotional state control. And I'm not talking about emotional bypassing here by any means. We want to be able to feel our emotions. We want to be able to experience our emotions, but there's also a time and place for that. And sometimes when big emotions hit, you're like, whoa, I am not in the space to process this right now. Let me see how I can bring myself back down. And then we can workshop on that later when I have time to meditate and journal and breathe and actually feel these emotions. So I don't want this to be confused with emotional bypassing and all. That is not what we're doing. We are just physically controlling our emotional state when it feels like it needs to be controlled in the moment to be able to get the things done that we want to be doing in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I do
So
feel called to share too. Like you, Nikki, you sent your anchoring PDFs to me just to briefly go over when before I had Harper, and I was really serious about dropping into the hypnobirthing and doing all of that. And birth is like uncontrollable. It's unexpected. So, but I did use the playlist that you sent me, and I was actually dropped into a really deep meditative state with just that playlist and just like breathing, breath work. And thankfully, I don't know why, but at night I'm just more calm. Like I was in the hospital for my birth, and I was able to drop into that state. And my experience, and I've told this to the girls before, but my mom was already on her way to the hospital, so I was like meditating, like just dropping into the state. And once my mom arrived, it pulled me out of that bubble. And I felt like I had to entertain her. I felt like I had, and obviously it's my birth. Like, why would I have to feel that way? But it's just what pulled me out. And then I ended up not being able to anchor myself back down and deal with the contractions and push through them. And so I actually ended up getting an epidural because I was just like so focused on the pain rather than focusing on the anchor to calm myself down and just like give myself that strength. And so yeah, that's just my story, but it like even the 4 hours that I was contracting and the beginning of, my labor was really powerful because I was in that space. So now I know for the second baby, like I'm strong enough. I can do this, and I want to have a home birth. Hopefully my husband will do that. He's looking at me like, "Do you?"
My husband was like that
But
too. He was like, I don't
You'll,
know.
you'll come
yeah,
around. You'll come around.
yeah. But it was really powerful, and I just have to say, like, even just the PDF and a playlist, like, with no additional like training my mind, and then I dove in a little bit after having Harper into just rewiring your subconscious, and it's so powerful. Like, it truly is. It's crazy how in real life it is. Like, yeah. So
Yeah, more people need these tools, especially women.
And especially like you mentioned, Nikki, for productivity too. It's like this just is such a versatile tool. It's like everybody should be learning this. It's so valuable. And I took your coaching. I was in your coaching container a couple years back, and I know that we touched on that. That was my first intro into that, and it helped me again, like just anchor into, like you said, with your headphones. I definitely had that like every time. I mean, now I wear my AirPods kind of like here and there, so I kind of I tainted that anchor a little bit, but yeah, just to like drop in, have a specific like playlist to use. Like, okay, I know when I listen to this music that I'm focused and I'm working, and that's helped a lot.
Yeah, I love that. The playlists are a really powerful one for me. I always like when I taught yoga, I never ever planned a class. I would just let them flow, but I would use anchor cues in my playlist to know when it's time to bring the energy up, when it's time to bring the energy down. And it's like as soon as I heard that first song, my brain instantly switched into like it was like I became a different person. I was like, it is Yogi Nikki time, and we are ready to chill. And I have like a
I love
focus.
that.
I couldn't even tell you what's on my focus playlist because I hear that first song and I'm instantly like, go. So there's so many simple ways that you probably have already set anchors in your life that you don't even realize it. And taking a moment to step back and really start to gain that awareness of like, where am I operating on autopilot and how are these habits? How are these my environment? That's huge. Like Prince, like you were saying, as soon as your mom stepped in, the energy shifted and you couldn't get back in because you felt like you needed to be entertaining her and you had this pre-programmed people pleasing probably filters
yeah,
inside you and
yeah.
conditioning where it took you out of your environment, it took you out of your energy because there was somebody else there. That was one of the blessings, I guess, for me when I yeah baby 1 second. Okay.
So I know she's gonna finish that thought on what
Yeah.
Francis said, but probably maybe the next thing we talk about, we can shift into the breastfeeding.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
excited for that one.
We're gonna go for a walk while I finish. Although I kind of just forgot that thought, so maybe we won't finish. Are you ready, kiddo? Okay, come here.
Yeah,
I'm
it was
just gonna
just
turn my camera off first.
Yeah, for sure.
you're okay.
So she said she lost a thought, so maybe we could start chatting about breastfeeding and then she can jump in.
Yeah, yeah.
How was your experience breastfeeding? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm just curious, DeShera. I feel like we've talked about it, but with like latching, I know Kylo had like a tongue tie, so it was like,
Oh gosh, yeah. And that it's
but he's
crazy,
so much better now,
so much better.
right? Yeah,
That feels like ages ago, but it also feels like just yesterday. It's
I
it's
know.
weird how like time happens when you have a kid, but yeah, I definitely had a hard time latching after he was born, and it was kind of just it was very painful for me, like to the point where my nipples were like raw and like borderline bleeding.
Mm.
And at first I was like, okay, I know I'm like I have virgin nipples. They're,
Got
they
to
just
get
have
through
to get
it.
time.
Yeah.
But my midwife, and then I also ended up speaking with a lactation consultant, was they were like, it shouldn't hurt that bad. You shouldn't feel like you're suffering while you're trying to feed your child. And that's when I was like, okay, I know that there's something off. And so
Oh, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you either for some reason. Did the mic die?
Like probably died. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
that's okay.
Let's see. You
Not through the mic. Oh, yep. Now I can.
testing. One,
Yeah,
two,
Mhm.
three.
there you go.
Oh, sweet. Okay. My other mic died.
I love these entrepreneurial issues with our little baby mics, and they're just, I think they're so cute.
Does it sound the same?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Anyways, what was I talking about?
You were on.
I went to a
Yeah, lactation specialist.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he works with one of the specialists in this area, in the Portland area. He's like the tongue tie master, basically. He does like all the revisions for this surrounding area, and so she saw, and she was like, "Oh, he definitely has like a major tongue tie," and it's called a posterior tongue tie. So it's the base of the tongue. So like that little piece that connects the tongue to the base that was very, very short for him. But it was also not just that piece, but it was like the base of his tongue was really, really short. And so he couldn't latch properly along with a lip tie. So that piece right here that connects, and it was just like all of it. So ended up seeing that specialist, and I really had to think about, because it is a procedure. It's a very short procedure, but it was like, because he was so young too, it was like we have to do it now, or if we do wait, we would have to think about putting him under anesthesia. And I was just like, I don't want to get to that point. And so I ended up just we did it, and afterwards it was very tough because there's a lot of exercises that you have to do. So after, basically, the procedure is they get a laser and they cut the bottom of the tongue, and then they cut the little piece so that you have that motion. But now, because you have that motion, the tongue naturally wants to seal shut and heal. And so you constantly have to massage that to open it up. So you're basically massaging the wound to keep it open and heal like that. And so
Wow.
I basically had to stick my fingers in his mouth and do that 6 times a day.
Did it bleed? Was it like open, or did it like go properly closed properly? I don't know why that
open, but it's like
out,
it's cauterized because of the laser. And so
Yeah.
there was no bleeding or anything like that. But yeah, you just have to strengthen it. So it was that, keeping that wound open. And then, especially because the mouth heals very quickly. So that's why it was like 6 times a day. And it was like a whole thing. But I'm so glad that we did it, because once he worked on strengthening his tongue, it was this like a whole new experience. It was so much easier for him. And it was so much easier for me. And so we've been able to really work that out. I'm going to step away real.
I also went through that same, well, not the same situation. My daughter didn't have a tongue tie, but she did have trouble latching, and I'm not really sure what it is. Like, my daughter was in the NICU for the first 7 days of her life because she had meconium, which is poop in the womb. She pooped in the womb, so there was an infection, and wow, there's like a whole side story that I can go into, and I don't know why I was thinking of it as we were talking about this, but she had to get 7 days of antibiotics, and she was on like oxygen and things like that. So I'm not sure if, like, I was up in the NICU every 3 hours because I wanted to breastfeed, and um she was like being bottle fed, like, because I wasn't producing immediately. I had very like little colostrum coming out. Um, but it was really challenging, but I made it work, and I was like, every 3 hours I'm gonna try and like get her to latch. I was working with like a lactation specialist, all the things. And for like she latched initially, and then as it progressed and we brought her home, it was tough because she wouldn't like latch open. It was more like shut. And so my nipples were also virgin nipples. I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm just like going through it. I was using nipple butter, but then it just kept happening and she wasn't opening wide enough. And then I finally like did like the holding her a proper way and like supporting her. I don't think I was supporting her in the right ways, but now she latches beautifully and she even has teeth. And it's like she does bite me sometimes, but like it's so much better than what I was going through. I was like so much pain. And I think it was because I was also doing like the football hold and like all the things. I was like really just not fully prepared. But yeah,
There's
that
so
was my bad
much
experience.
that like I when I first started, I was like, oh, it's just a natural thing, the baby knows, the mom
Yeah.
intuition, this is gonna flow, and but it's like it's a learning curve. And I think
Mhm.
like I didn't realize that at all.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah,
most of us,
it's
yeah, I didn't either. I was like, oh, you just do it. And I was like, I have the
not
bloated
it.
nipples. I had to get a consultant. I was like, why is this so complicated? Nikki,
Right.
how was your experience?
With breastfeeding, yeah.
I we actually had a pretty smooth transition into breastfeeding. I think the most difficulty we had was actually, so I birthed in a hospital as well. And they made me stay. And since she was born just before midnight, they like gifted us an extra day. And I was like, I don't want that. Like, I want to go home. And so we had a lot of the nurse that I had was amazing, but she was just very like, I've been here since the ward opened. I know best. Da, da, da. And of course, I'm a new mom. So I'm like, all right, like, tell me what's up. But like, I'm going to do what I want anyways. So we had a lot of issues in the actual hospital with nursing. The second we got home, my husband went to go get us some food. And I was like, I'm just going to sit here. And it just clicked for us because we were outside of that environment that we needed to be into. And
Yeah, that's stressful environment. Oh my goodness.
yeah, and it's like they tell you like rest and go
Yeah.
ahead and feed you. And then the second I would like go to sleep or the second I would start nursing, they're like, we need to do something. I'm like, no, you don't. Like if
Mm-hmm.
anyone here, if you're watching, you don't know this, you can say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know that
Yeah.
now. Like you can say no and it is perfectly fine. And I bumped heads with a lot of people throughout my pregnancy. Being older,
Mm-hmm.
I was treated very differently in my, the geriatric, which they now call advanced maternal age pregnancy. And I bumped heads with a lot of my doctors because I was like, no, we're not doing
I
90%
agree.
of
I
this
had
one.
because I wanted a home birth and I wanted a naturopath, and my husband's like, nope, we're going through insurance. So I did both. We went to all the naturopath appointments and I did hospital with a midwife appointments. And I
Mhm.
would ask the midwife, why is this the procedure? It's protocol. Why? Why are you doing this? Never could answer it. And then my husband
Mhm.
started seeing our naturopath would give us options and then say, hey, it's your choice. And it's so interesting because he was pushing hospital and he's like, oh my God, like I understand now. So it was
Mhm.
super powerful.
I love that shift when like our partners see the contrast. And that's kind of like what
Mhm.
happened with me too. It's with my first pregnancy and it ended really quickly. But I was going through the home birth, way, but we were still kind of uneasy about it. And my husband was like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, all of the what is it, the stereotypes
Yes.
of home birth, and it's like so savage, or like primal, but they're like,
Dangerous.
yeah, dangerous, and like you're giving birth in like a hut or something with
Right.
no medical supervision. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, people do that and they do it well and it's fine, but that's not what we're doing. It's
Right.
like it's very safe, and especially if you're low risk, like it's not an emergency to give birth. And that's where I think a lot of people just automatically think that, and so
It's
look at you,
true
Nikki. I just
because
saw you firing your
yeah, please. Please, yeah.
Oh yeah,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
jump in real quick, but I I was contracting. I was going through all the contractions for like about a week, you know? And so it took me a week to, 10 centimeters or whatever the case is. But I believe if I had been in the hospital, they would have been like, C-section, you're taking too long. Your body's too slow. It's not doing the thing. And the reality is some people need the week, you know? So yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's a procedure, it's on their timeline. And so that, you know, a lot more C-sections happen than necessary.
Yeah.
I
So
actually was just a creator that that I follow, and she's in our community as well. She just had her baby. And I think you might know who I'm referring to, but she just made a story that like I was like, wait, I didn't even think of it like that. How 2 weeks after your period, you're not even pregnant, and they consider that a part of the 40-week window. And so when you're actually giving birth at 40 weeks, like according to Western medicine, your gestational is 38 weeks. And so if you go to 42 weeks, which my doctor, my OBGYN was not going to let me go to 42 weeks. He was like, if you go to 42 weeks, like I'm going to induce you. And I was like, I don't want to be induced. Like, and he's just like, okay, well, I'm not going to let you go past 42 weeks. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be induced. Thankfully, I was able to, I had Harper right at 40 weeks, but technically it was 38 gestational. And it was so crazy because I didn't realize I thought you were pregnant. I mean, I guess I never put two and two together, but I thought you were pregnant immediately after. And it is wild how like urgent they make it, like the chaotic environment. I'm not saying that,
And
hospital
the
births should
pressure
be.
of like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna induce you, excuse me?
Yeah,
Is
I
right.
this
was
your body?
yeah,
What you mean? Like,
Right. And I'm not saying like hospital births should be frowned upon, but that's what creates that chaos and that fear around birth and being able to do it on your own. Like, I'm sorry, but God made us the way He made us for a reason. Like, our bodies are supposed to be doing this. And so that's just the way that I viewed it. But I had to go the insurance route too. Like, we weren't really super like into educated on what options we had, and so we thought our only option was through the hospital and through insurance, and so that's kind of the way we took because of the finances. But now that I've had a baby and I have a community that is so educated, and I've educated myself more, like I don't know if I could put myself back in that scenario.
Yeah, I feel
It's
like I'm
crazy.
the opposite of most people with our mindset because I don't think I could do a home birth because I don't think I could fully drop in to the moment at home because I would constantly be like, oh, I could organize this or I could do like when I'm home, I like even when I went into labor in the morning and I was able to like relax and drop in, but I was like, I wanted to take my mind off things. So I was like, let me try doing some stuff. And it was hard for me to fully settle in at home because I don't know if it's because I knew I was going to be going somewhere else at the time, but we chose not to do a home birth at the time because the home that we were renting and it just never felt like home there. And I didn't want that to be my birth portal. And I was fine birthing in the hospital that we birthed in because I wanted to work with the midwife. They've been like I don't have like an OBGYN. When I called to get my women's annual like 15 years ago, they just placed me with this midwife and I fell in love with her over the years because she's always listened to me. And anytime anyone's been like, that's not true, she's like, no, like if that's what you want to test, let's test it. And you've always been right. And before, like, your body. So I was like, we're working with her. So the hospital actually offered hypnobirthing. Like they brought in their own aromatherapy for like when I gave them my birth preferences, they matched it. They were like, whatever you want to do, we're here for. And it was such a
that's so
beautiful
cool.
I
experience.
love that. Yeah. Wow.
And so I definitely see the side of birthing in hospitals and the pressure and everything that goes into it. And I think it's a part of that is the hospital setting and a part of that is the birthing team and having that relationship with them because most people don't work with them. Like I've had this 15-year relationship with the midwives that I've worked with, but like you would have never thought of that until you got pregnant. And I think that's huge. And so yeah, like even now we own this home. It's my favorite place. I don't even know now if I would want to home birth here, because it's still, I don't have a place here where I feel like I could fully drop into my birthing portal. And when I stepped into that hospital room, it was almost like another anchor for me that I had set, where it was like that was the area that I had set to walk into to have that experience. And
That's so
it was a really
powerful.
good one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Because, now that you think of, like, now that you say that, it's true. Like, the hospital setting is where I've only ever known to give birth, and the home birthing community, what I was only ever introduced to when I was introduced to with this community. And so it's just interesting because, like, my family is very much, hospital. You have to go to the hospital. What if there's an emergency? Like, you need to be safe. And I really like both ends of the spectrum, but I love that you just shed light on that because, we can still be like crunchy mamas, but still want to give birth in a hospital. So yeah, I love that you just shared that.
Or there's like I don't know what you call them, like birthing centers,
Birthing
birthing
Yeah.
centers. Yeah.
facilities, where
It's
it's
really wherever,
basically
I think
like
the most important thing is where you feel supported. And it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
have, you know, and
And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, not everyone has that. And I think that's the disappointing thing.
yeah. And like you
Yeah.
said in the beginning, Nikki, kind of like you can say no, even
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a hospital. It's like we're really just knowing, like, it always comes
Knowing your
down to
rights.
informed consent. It's like
Yeah.
you want to ask questions. You don't want to just blindly follow because this is protocol and this is what they say to do. It's like you can question that, you can challenge that, and you can say no. But it doesn't make it wrong to want to birth in a hospital. It's not always a fear, a fear driven,
Environment.
thank you,
Yeah.
environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
I might
agree.
look into like a birthing center the next time, because I didn't mind like the actual birthing in the hospital. Like the room was I didn't feel like I was in a hospital at any point when I was actually giving birth. It was that like 2 days after when I was just like, I want to go
You're like,
home. Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
need to check me every 5 seconds. Like, Ada got released from the hospital, and it took like another 8 hours for me to get released. And I was just, we were packed up, sitting there, ready to go. Like we were literally just sitting there waiting for the sign off. And so that was the part that I wasn't aligned with, was all the after
Yeah.
stuff. So it's like, yeah, worth looking into having that sacred space that you can find somewhere else, but like also, having more flexibility to come and go as you please.
I do really like the idea of a water birth. I just feel like being in a warm bathtub would just soothe and help relax, like almost like a hot tub, because it has to be a certain degree. But that's something like that I know birthing centers offer, and certain hospitals allow you to get in the
Mhm.
shower or get in the tub. And I wish that I had that at my hospital. I was at like an older hospital, and my birth experience was beautiful. Like giving, like pushing, laboring, all the things. Like it was beautiful. But yeah, I wish that I was able to like hop in a bathtub and just like sit in peace.
That was like the one
That
thing
was
I
it.
wanted, was the tub for my birth. And because I had waited so long to get to the hospital, the time we got there, we didn't have enough time for them to actually come set one up. But having gone through the experience, I don't think I would do it next time, because I had a shower and I couldn't sit. Like it was very uncomfortable for me to sit. I wanted to be standing, or like I was on all fours pretty much the entire time. That's what felt good to me. And so I after the fact, I was like, I would have never gotten in that tub because it wasn't comfortable for me to be in it that way. And I stood in the shower for most of the time and just let the heat like run until I was like, okay, we got to move, or else like this baby's going to be born on the floor here. But yeah, it's interesting how you have this idea, and then it's so beautiful now, having gone through this experience, that we're able to take so much, knowing too that no two pregnancies are going to be the same, no two birthing experiences are going to be the same. But having that intuition mixed with the experience now is like the exciting part for me, because it's like, ooh, now I like know what, because everyone kept saying like, you're gonna know, like when you go into labor, you're just gonna know. And so I was in labor and I called and I was like, I think I'm in labor. And they were like, what do you mean you think? And I'm like, well, you guys said like you'll just know. And like I don't actually know. So
You're like, I'm
maybe
pretty sure I'm there.
And I was like, like they're like, well, maybe not because you're like talking through your contractions, your surges, like, you're, and I'm like, yeah, but like, I really feel like she's coming. Like, I knew the day before that she was coming the next day. Like, I had woken up with this, like, I went from like super like nesting energy, and I was like, I got to get all these things done, to the day before I gave birth. I woke up super early, and I felt like I had like like all of my senses were like supersonic. I could see through walls. I could hear across, like, I was like sitting on my back porch. We lived in a community that was like around a lake. And I was like, I feel like I can see, and like I know where everyone is in their house right now and what they're doing. And like felt like I could just see 360. It was crazy, like how heightened. And I had this like calling to find a cave. Like all I wanted to do was go crawl in my closet. And my husband finally woke up, and I was like, dude, she's coming today or tomorrow, because I'm feeling the primal call to like crawl into a cave and prepare for this. And sure enough, the next day, I had like a quick backstory too. I had, again with the system, I had failed my gestational diabetes test by 1 point, and so they had diagnosed me with gestational diabetes, and they wanted me to go through all of these hoops with that, which we're not getting into that story. But because of that, for instance, I was not allowed to go past 40 weeks, and so I had an induction scheduled. My midwife was basically like, whether you show up to that or not is on you. Here for you, because and so I actually went into labor at 39 weeks, like the Thursday before I was scheduled for my induction. So it was really beautiful that all happened. I lost my train of thought on that again.
They pre-diagnosed you with gestational diabetes. I had the same
I
situation.
know.
I failed it by 1 point. And
Yeah.
I sorry to interrupt your thought,
No,
but
no,
they
you're
made
good.
me like, because I went through the OBGYN, like I had to do the blood sugar I didn't want to do the test with the drink like twice, because they were like, oh, you're gonna have to do like the 8-hour fast or whatever, and see. And I was like, I'm not drinking that drink again. First off, that was disgusting and so terrible for me. It was literally just red dye and glucose. And I was like, I'm not doing that ever again. And then, so I was just like, I will opt in to take my blood sugar 3 times a day if that's the case. Like, I'm not. And I wasn't, I was completely normal. So I was like,
Yeah, same. I never had a spike. The perinatal actually like apologized to me, was like, I'm sorry, like, because we had gotten into it, and I was like, this
yeah.
is not a thing. Like, they were trying to tell me to eat a certain way, and I was like, you once never asked me what my diet is, and you're telling me to change my diet without knowing what my diet is. And like the like meal plan that they gave me it was all processed foods. I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not going to see your specialist, because I'm going to keep eating how I eat. You can look at my numbers and we'll see how it is. But that brought me back on my thoughts. So because I knew I was coming into this potential induction, I started doing a lot of like visualizations and different practices to really, like, obviously she's going to come when she's ready, but to sort of like get the energy flowing around that. And one of the things I did was acupuncture. And so I love my naturopath, my acupuncturist. And he was like, I got you. So we had done a session the week before, and then he's like, we'll do a couple back-to-back sessions that week. So I had gone that day. I woke up feeling like she's coming. I had a session that day with him, and then I was scheduled to have my second session that Thursday morning at 11, and it was like 10:50, and my whole body, like, I kept getting up to get ready, and my body was like physically pulling me back in the chair. It was like, we are not leaving this house. And so I called my husband, because he was working like an hour away from where we were at the time that day. And I was like, hey, because every time I would call him, he's like, is it time? Like, we're good. We're good. I'm just calling to say hey, but I want to let you know, like, nothing's happened yet, but I'm feeling a little weird. And because you are so far away from home, you might want to head this way. And he was like, all right. And I was like, but nothing is happening yet. At 11 o'clock, when I would have been in my appointment, I had my first surge, and I was like, I felt it. I knew it was different. And so my body was literally like, do not leave this house. Like, things are about to happen. And when we fall into like that, I don't want to say like fall into the system, because there needs to be some trust with the medical system. And it's a shame that we've gotten to this point where we even have to educate ourselves so much to know what questions to even ask. I feel like that's a topic for another day. but it was like, having that trust, but having that intuition to know like when to follow the signs. And so, yeah, when I called and I was like, I think I'm in labor, they kept wanting me to come in to get checked. And I was like, no, like, I'm not doing that. Cause all I'm going to do is I'm going to go there. I'm telling you now, like, I'm 70% sure I'm in labor, and I didn't want to be sent home. So by the time we finally got to the hospital there, like, I think I was only there for like an hour before I went into like active labor, because I had not waited so long, but I was like, one, I don't want to be laboring there. I'd rather be at home. And two, they're like, you should have came in so we could check you. And I was like, well, all you were going to do, I was going to drive all the way to you for you to just send me back to the hospital. Like, we're not doing all that.
Yeah.
It's like your body knows, but those are also some things that really helped me within. I'm convinced that I was actually in an acupuncture session. I'm like convinced I felt like when the egg like implanted when we got pregnant. So I was I thought that I had gotten my period that morning, and I was like, oh, we're done. We'll try again next month, because we were actively trying to get pregnant, and we had a miscarriage a couple months before. So it was like, I was like, I'm not testing right now because like I just don't want to know. So my period came and I was like, all right, we're good. And I went to my acupuncture appointment, and I felt like it was like halfway through the session, I felt like this pin prick like in my uterus. And I was laying there and I was like, man, if I didn't know that I wasn't pregnant right now, or because I thought I wasn't, then like I would have sworn that's exactly what was happening. Like, I just like got pregnant right now. Like, that egg was implanted. and and then like a couple days later, I like got this weird urge to just go take a pregnancy test, and I did, and I found out I was pregnant.
Oh my
So
God.
it's like crazy, like how you're like, once you're in tune with your body, like how much you
I was
actually
gonna say your intuition
feel.
is so heightened.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Crazy.
say
Like
that.
all the stuff you're talking
Mhm.
about. I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
I
So
was just
beautiful.
gonna say
So
that's
beautiful.
funny.
That's how I feel too. It's like when when they say like you get the feeling of the baby kicking at a certain,
Hmm.
age. Um and for me, I felt the flutters way early, like
Hmm.
11 weeks, 12 weeks. And I would question like, is that gas? But I was like, no, because I know what gas feels like, and that's not what that feels like. So it
That's
was,
me.
but then everybody
Funny.
would be like, no, it's going to be around like 16 weeks and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but at 11 weeks, they do start moving. And
Hmm.
if you are very in tune with your body, you would probably be able to feel it. And so it was just really interesting to be like, no, that's him. Like he's
Hmm.
like, nope, mama, I'm here.
I love that. I felt her kick super early as well. I think like the first time I remember her kick was like 13 weeks or something. Yeah, similar to that. So it's so beautiful. It makes me like looking at her now, seeing how fast they grow. Like you make me want another one, but I really need to wait. Like really need to wait. But yeah,
Those conversations making me miss my pregnant belly, like
I know.
yeah.
feeling the kicks, and I'm like, oh, I love
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
No, I definitely, when he came out, I was just so, like, I missed having him in my belly, but obviously I'm like, I'm so glad that you're here. Like, and I get to
Yep.
actually like hold you.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was like, oh, the way that he would curl, it was just like, oh, that's how I knew what you were doing inside my stomach, which is such a trip, like the contrast of, so
Mm.
yeah.
Did y'all
So
get your babies, like, did you send them to the adjuster? Like, did they get adjusted after birth? I'm curious to know how you feel about that. What's your take on like adjusting your baby after birth, like with the chiropractor? I've heard that there's a lot of benefits to that.
yeah, I heard my midwife was she's an advocate for craniosacral work. And she was like, yeah, I mean, if sometimes the baby, you'll notice them like favor one side. And
Hmm.
that's usually like a tightness in their muscles. And it's, you go in to get, I mean, it's essentially chiropractic work, but they
Hmm.
will sometimes like hold the baby upside down by their feet. It's totally safe, but it's like to kind of lengthen
Align.
the spine. And yeah,
Yeah.
so she actually did that with him because I noticed him favoring one side, and she did that. And at first, like, I was like, oh my God, you're dangling my baby from his feet. It's kind of weird. And even Cam, he was like, what the fuck is she doing? but we, afterwards, we
Trust in the process.
noticed like the release. And it was just off of just that one, like, I won't even say session. It was just that one posture that helped him a lot. And that even helped with him latching better. So it's like, it goes into that a lot. And I even think about it now, like, I would love to continue doing that. But yeah.
That is so beautiful because it's so powerful. And I actually just learned from a girl, one of my dear friends here, she's the sourdough girl in our community, and she has an adjuster come to her house every week and adjust her and her kid. And her kid is 5 or 4 now. And she said anytime she gets him adjusted, she notices a behavioral difference. It's like he sleeps better, he walks better. He had like this thing where his knees were bowed in a little bit, and he would walk better, stand better, his posture was better. And I've just heard that getting them adjusted just directly after birth is so good, because Harper was she was head up until 36 weeks. So she was like, and she finally flipped one night, and I remember the pain of that too. Like, it was ridiculous, but she was like head up until 36 weeks. And they say that can, give them hip dysplasia or like things like that. So I haven't brought her to an adjuster yet, but I've heard that it's really powerful. And I think it would help with the way she sleeps. She sleeps on her stomach, and she sleeps with her like legs curled up. I do the same thing. It's crazy how she mirrors me, but like that energy, I want it to, like, I don't want to have any blockages on her. So like, I want to get adjusted. I want to get her adjusted. And I've heard there's so many beautiful things, and allowing that energy to flow. I wonder if that affects like the NLP. I'm curious what your take is on that, Nikki.
I don't think as far as like NLP it would affect it, but certainly blocks in your energy and your energy flow, and just integrating different types of practices on top of, the subconscious rewiring with like Reiki. Reiki is super powerful, and having that energy flow and removing those blocks. And it can be really powerful used in conjunction with like hypnotherapy, which is not everyone considers hypnotherapy part of NLP, but some NLP consider it's like kind of the same, and acupuncture is all energy and flow. And I think it's all, I don't think there's one practice that's going to be end all be all. I think it's really just finding that holistic approach of what works for you, and combining the physical, the mental and the physical, the mind body connection and the energy and all of that, just to where you're in your own flow.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I want to get adjusted, and I want Harper to be adjusted too. So I feel like,
well, this was really such a good call. And I honestly, there were so many topics that we could go diving into, because, the breastfeeding and the weaning, and, there's just so much.
I was going to say, I don't even think we touched on the topics we originally said we were going to talk
about. I was just thinking that like we were going to be talking about screen time and like all the things. Yeah. And I'm like, literally, I have the TV on watching Stillwater.
So good. That show is so good.
So good. We'll have to talk about that next time. But yeah, thank you so much, Nikki, for coming on and chatting with us.
This was so fun.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
This was fun.
This is the vibe of our calls. Soon. Yes, this is the vibe of our calls. I was going to say, like, we never stay on topic, but it always just somehow flows. So. Right?